Hey guys, we're building Spotify today, so let's get into it. First thing let's grab the background color. Now we're looking at probably a shade of gray I'm going to pick up. So usually I go and make a little style guide, but Spotify doesn't actually have a lot of colors to pick from. So we've got a dark gray down here, which I will turn into a square, just so we can pick back at it. There we go. And then I think their other big pull-out color will be their green. So grab that. Cool. So now we have those two. Let's get building. Now, Spotify uses album artwork to kind of make the color. And because they haven't got control of what the album artwork's going to be, you'll always have a different experience, and it'll always work and reflect the music perfectly. And so the Unheavenly Creatures, great band, Coheed and Cambria. They've got like a dull brown tone coming through here, and you can see that the gradient that's been built on the side is being pulled from that cover itself. So I've grabbed it here. Let's paste it on here and resize that bad boy. It's probably about, we'll go 150. That looks about right. So we'll start off with building this middle piece and we'll kind of work our way around it. Let's get some text. Now the text they're using in this, they've recently just swapped to Proxima Lite, which is available on the Adobe store, adobe.fonts.com. Sorry, fonts.adobe.com. And you'll be able to get it there. It's a huge versatile font. I actually use it at my main workplace. So it's really good to see that huge places like Spotify use it as well. So extra bold, looking a little bit too bold. So let's try bold. Yeah, okay, great. And you can see it's actually quite tightly spaced. So the natural -0.07 that comes out of here, we'll stick with that. I think 0 might actually be a little bit too wide for this. Yeah, it will be. So they've kerned it quite tightly, which would be great when you got really long names as well. So we've got a button coming up next, which is the save button. We'll round the corners, the radius as far as we can. And I'll have a look at what color we're grabbing from here. So this looks like it's a white that's been dulled to maybe a 50% opacity with a spaced out save inside it. So we'll get our spacing here. We'll use our 6-point grid. So that's 16 from that, and we'll get that 16 from the header type as well. So we'll just alt drag this text. We'll type in save. We'll drop the font down to what look like 13. You don't want to use less than 13. Just because it becomes illegible when you read it. And we'll do a spacing of 3. So I'm just aligning it all in the middle. Now that doesn't look like it's quite in the middle, so what I'm going to do is expand the box out and then align the text middle using this button here, and then you'll see it's perfectly in the middle now. So just to clarify, that's 100% white. This border here, we'll turn it white and then we'll drop it down to 50%, or maybe even, I think closer to a 20. Let's have a look at what 20 looks like. So they've got even smaller for this font. See, you shouldn't, where possible, you really don't want to go anything lower than 13. But with something as, I'd imagine one of the huge problems, the huge UI problems that Spotify would face is that they have to, Red Hot Chili Peppers, huge long name, and then you've got, AC/DC. And they have to make both of them look good and enough so they've filled the page, and it's all great having a look at these dribble shots. But real data is ugly and it's quite hard to build. So kudos to them for that. So we'll pick that as semi-bold. And then this album by Coheed looks exactly like this, just with a drop opacity. So I'll drag that stuff down as well. So this is album by Coheed and Cambria. Now I want it to stay in the middle, so I'm just going to hold Alt as I drag this box apart. Drop this opacity down to 50. Now there's two kinds of opacities. You can change the opacity here, and you can change the opacity, the alpha channel inside the color picker. Might I suggest to set the opacity here when you can, and then that top opacity is, I'll put it back to 100. This top opacity is better when you've got a few elements that you group together, and then you can drag the opacity up and down for the entirety of everything. So I'll just ungroup all that back to how it was and turn this alpha channel back down to what looks like 50. Cool, and we've got two dots here. These dots are classic UI pattern, and they kind of, they show the user that there's more data, that there's more things to look at. And we've got one that's in an active state and one that's in a passive state. So I think the one that was active was the one on the left, not quite as wide spacing. So we'll go 8 pixels between each other. We'll make this the wider one, and we'll put this down to the 20% opacity. So they're just two dots, but they're super powerful. As soon as you see those two together, you know that you can swipe, and then it'll these two will end up swapping around. So you can see that the right one is actually active and the left one isn't. So that's looking good so far. Let's get this shuffle play. Now it's going to be a bigger version of this this button here. So I'm just going to Alt drag and select that. Make this a bit wider. We'll go 200 pixels. Oh no, we'll go 220. I'll write that in. 220. And then we'll make it taller. So we'll go by 40. Now you'll see as I dragged it down that it lost its rounded corners, because I would like it to have 100, which just means 100%. It is fully rounded, 100 pixels, not percent, sorry. But as you make things taller, they'll start to lose those edges, because it only allows you to do the maximum, which at this case was 44 or 14 or something like that. So now let's grab our fill, which is, we'll turn these two colors here. If we select the fill and click on the plus document color, you'll be able to add these two colors to this document and use them wherever you go. So now if we select this, turn the fill to the green, brilliant. It doesn't look as wide. That looks a bit more chubby than this, so I'm going to give it a bit more. We'll go 50. And we'll drop that behind the save. This is now shuffle play. And it looks like it's got a bit more visual hierarchy in the boldness, in the physical height of it as well. 14. And similar character spacing as well, which is good. And then we'll middle align it and vertically align it, horizontally and vertically align it to make it look good. All right, cool. That's looking good right now. We'll keep going down here. So they're probably using 16 pixels. Yeah, that looks good. That's pretty similar. As a left side padding, type in download, not in all caps though, Aaron, don't want to yell at the user. Yelling at the user is often frowned upon. All right, size 16 looks good, and it seems like they've increased the spacing down here. So we'll drop this 0.7 back to just 0, and that should be okay. Make sure that's We're 32 pixels away from that. And then we'll make this radio button over there. So that is made just 2 shapes, nice and simple. 16 pixels from the edge. Turn the radius as far as you can. No fill inside there. And the border is fully white and 20% or 20% alpha channel. And it looks like it's maybe 2 pixels. Yeah, great. And we'll be able to find out the exact width of it by making a circle in the middle here. So I'm holding Alt and Shift, and that's keeping the proportions strained. If I let go of it, it'll go from top left. So I'm holding Alt and Shift, go 1 pixel out, drop that there, turn off the borders, and then what color is that? It looks like it's 100% white. And I'm not sure if I'm a big fan of it actually reaching the edges. I think I actually like it with a bit of space. But you know what? We're building their app, not ours. So let's do it. Make that the same size, and we'll change the border on here. Instead of being an inside, we'll make it center. Yeah. Which will give us the same button. Now you'll see that the button is probably only this size. Let's have a look. No, it is a bit bigger. Okay, there is no rhyme or reason to why that button is as it is. It just is. It's a bit longer, guys, a bit longer. All right, we'll go 54. And we'll make sure you are 16 pixels away from the edge. We will Command G, which will group them. And we'll label this here as radio download button. Now we do that just for naming convention's sake further down the track. You don't have to do it. But when someone else is reading your document, you don't want to be woken up out of bed when they're trying to fix it and you have no idea what's going on either. So I'm going to use the one text box here. We'll go Coheed and Cambria. So this will be, looks like regular. We'll go regular, and they've probably gone regular for both, but just dropped the size of this second. Looks quite small. Okay, and this looks a little bit thicker, but then they've also dropped the visual hierarchy by reducing the white opacity. And it's got an increased line space to it. So let's just go 26 too far. 20. That will do. So that is our first, that's our first song. And we will, I'm just going to pick in the middle with guides. So I'm going to build something over here, but I want to vertically align in the middle. So if I select an object, you can see that it's made a grid at the side here. So I can perfectly make grids to the top and bottom, but I want to make one in the middle. So I'll find the middle point here and I'll click on it and I'll make myself a guide. And then I'll go and build 3 dots, maybe just 6 pixels big. And we'll make them 100% white and we'll equally space them between each other. Okay, now I've just done something. I think I've moved the background here. I'm just going to check. Yeah, I think I had moved the background. So this is a pesky background and it's going to keep getting selected. I'm going to right click it and lock the layer. Now I can just go ham. So we have 1, 2, and 3. We'll give them, probably need a bit more than 2. They look nice and spaced now as far as spacing, but I have a feeling when we zoom out that they won't be too noticeable. So you can see that the dots are actually quite small. They're half the size of all those. I just selected them all and picked 3. Even smaller still, I think that they are 2 pixels. No, they're 3. They're definitely 3. And they're just closely spaced. So we'll take them back to the 2 because I was right the first time. I just didn't believe in myself. We'll go 3. 3 in size, 3 in differentiator, and we'll make sure that that is 16 pixels away from the edge. And we'll line that to the middle as close as we can. And we'll drop the opacity. I will group them first and we'll call them more. We'll go icon more. And this one should be icon radio. Oh, it's not an icon though. That was right. Yeah. So we'll have icon more. Okay, and we'll get rid of that. Love that sound. And drop the opacity down to, this looks a little bit more, maybe 50. Yeah, we'll go 50. So now we have this icon as a, not an icon, this song, and we want to do the same thing down the line. So there's no point us copying and pasting this, because if we wanted to change one of the songs or one of the stylings, we'd have to change it for each of the actual tracks. So what we can do is we make a rectangle that includes the spacing. So I'm going to send this rectangle close to the back, get rid of the border and just kind of drop the opacity real low. And we'll see that we'll go a 12 pix top and bottom border, right? So we'll increase the height by this by 1. It says 11 and 13, shift it up 1, that's 12 and 12 above and below. And then between this and that, we will make sure that is an even amount, so 32. We'll drop this opacity down to 0 and select everything and group it. And we'll call this song. We will right click it and we will create a symbol. We'll call it song. So now we have a symbol called song, and it has a changeable element inside it. So if I now make a bunch of these symbols, all perfectly spaced because I'm just aligning it to the edge of the next one, I can now have a bunch of songs. And I can change the text that's inside here. So if I want the second song to be the dark sentencer, okay, so you can see the next issue here. I've made it all in one text box. So all right, so what we'll do is, that's the downside to making it all in one instance. So I'll double click on it and it lets me edit the symbol. I'm going to change the background color so I can actually read what's going on. Maybe we'll go to the color of that background, and we'll untick include in export and include in instances. So that allows us to edit it, but then it won't be shown in the actual final design. And I will grab this second piece of text. I will Command X to get rid of it and then paste it. Now that unfortunately didn't keep the styling. That is okay, because it was $13 and $15. And if I remember correctly, that they've made that slightly thicker. Let's have a look. Yeah, so that looks pretty close. It looks pretty good. So now we'll have 2 different things that we can edit in here. So we have Prologue and we have Coheed and Cambria. So one cool thing that we can do is we can just grab all of these, and if we haven't got time to type everything in, we can select, we want Coheed and Cambria to stay that, so that's fine. And prologue, we'll go names. And you'll see it's given a name to absolutely everything here. So let's just keep that there for now. And I'll show you the power of symbols with the rest of this. So you can see we've got explicit here, which we can't add in this symbol. So what we'll do is we'll make a second version of this symbol. And we'll call this song explicit. Now, firstly, I'm going to go make the explicit thing. It looks like it's gray with... All right, I'll try and make that from hand. We'll go back into here. So this gets pushed over to the edge here. We get a little button that has, it doesn't look like it has complete rounded edges, probably about 2 or 3. We'll go 2 for now. The color of it was white, but maybe about 50. We'll go a bit more. We'll go about 70. We'll take off this border. And we will get text in there that was explicit. Now this looked quite small. Make it bold. And we'll select the background of the document, which it should be. Now this text is, the rectangle needs to go underneath it. There we go. All right, and we'll increase the character space just by a little bit to get the spacing wide and to actually middle align it. It wasn't middle aligning just then. See how if I move it up or move it down one, it's still, there is no proper pixel for it to sit on. So I'm just going to make this 1 pixel wider and then it perfectly sits in the middle. I'm going to space this away from that. Oh, that's behind it. $12 is probably too much, so we'll just do 8. So I think that explicit might be good enough. It might actually be, it looks pretty similar to that. Now we can select this song and we can now change the symbol from a song to a song explicit. And you'll see that now it has created the explicit. And we can just change the, if we already had this text as don't change this text and change it back to song, it would still keep that the same. So it just kind of overrides it. There are a few other cool things you can do as far as symbols go, but we'll leave that for now. So let's change this back to the dark sentencer. Great. Now this isn't there. It isn't lined to the bottom correctly, and it's hurting me. Oh, it is. I think I might need to just drop 1 pixel lower. Yeah, cool. All right, great. Now we have that, and then we have one of these which is active. So in this case is toys. So I will type in toys, and we haven't got an override for this. So I'm going to change this to song active. Let's make all these part of, by using a slash, you can kind of create a folder hierarchy. Okay, so now we have song standard, song explicit, and song active. And now active, we will change the color to the green. And we'll change toys to active. Okay, cool. So now we have active, explicit, and standard all sitting inside its own little folder here. So now that you can keep them all nice and linked. Okay, cool. So that's great. That looks perfect. We'll let this one stay there. we'll build the menu over the top of it. And so we'll grab a rectangle and we will cut it off around there. We'll go 120, 130, 130, 130. Now this will be our second color. So I'm going to select that color and add it as a document color, just so we have the two grays and the green. Let's have a quick look inside here. So it looks like they've made it with just a standard rectangle, white rectangle, with another white rectangle under it, saying at maybe like a 50%. This is 50 Shades of Grey, this app, but without all the fun stuff. So we'll change this to white. 10. Yeah, let's go 10. Made up my mind. With a 2 pixel height, and we are just going to Control C and V to make a second copy of it. Make sure it's white and make it 100%. So if I go and divide that width by 2, we'll get perfectly in the center. And now you can see we've got a playtime bar. So we'll group those together. Playtime bar. I want to make this spacer here, which I think is a black opacity, and it looks like it's 1 pixel. So I'm just going to drag that down, ungroup it because I've grouped it before. Delete this white line, get the black line, change it to 1 pixel in height and black, and then we'll change it to about 20% the alpha channel. And that's created our second divider line. So we'll grab what text looks like this the most, probably the bad side of once it's a symbol, you can't just alt drag stuff anymore. So let's grab this font and move it to the top. And this is toys. I have in, no, so this because it's a center aligned, we might be able to get away with this as toys, Coheed, and Cambria. I'll show you what I'm doing here, method to my madness. No, it's too big. 13 character space back to 0. This looks 100%. And then I'm going to put 2 spaces in between so we can get a dot in there. Now they've probably got, they will have code that allows them to style this, so we don't need to build it per se in Sketch. But if we turned this into a symbol, you would now be able to, as long as you typed in the one word and then space 3 times, type the letter of the band, AC/DC, you can see that it's made the styling of the text exactly the same as we've done it before. There'd be some other things that you need to muck around with there to get that functional, but very cool for to get done. So devices available underneath this. Oh, that's right. I needed to detach from symbol because that was already turned into a symbol. And we'll call that devices available, size 10, maybe a 50. Great. And then they have a little icon in here, which we could make that. Let's make that. So I'll show you how they built that. We have a square, which looks like it has rounded edges. I've double clicked into this and I'm going to put an edge, we'll put an anchor point inside there go layer, path, scissors, and just chop these two off all the way to the edge. Actually, we can chop these 3 and 4 off. So now we have a half size here. Drop that off and make it white. We've got an individual line here, which for now we'll keep 100% white. And it seems like it's rounded on the left-hand edge, so we'll go 1, 1, 0, 0. It doesn't like rounded corners because it's too small at the moment, so that's okay. We'll make it 0.5, we'll just make it 1. And now we'll build another rectangle on the other side that has the same 1 pixel rounding. Turn fill off, make the borders white. Looks like it's a little wider, but it's also have to juggle around some of these to what we'll do just to make this easier. I've got pixel fitting on, so I have pixel perfect designs. But by doing that, it stuffs up some of my creations. Especially at this low pixel point. We'll turn it to white, and we'll go 0.5 as an inside, and then we'll get rid of the border and turn the fill back on, and we'll make you nice and small. So we've kind of just done it here. Gonna reduce the size of some of these. Make the spacing equal. That spacing isn't equal, but it went 1 pix there. And then turn this to 0.5. Down there as well. And now the hard bit is actually grabbing it all and not taking everything else with me. And we'll plop you in there, we'll group you so you don't have any more issues, and we'll turn you down to 50%. Now we have a little icon there too. The heart shape should be easy enough. It is 1 rectangle. If you want to make like a really nice geometrically perfect icon, so 4, 4, 0, 0. We need a bit more than that. Okay, we'll have it as 6, 6, 0, 0. There we go. We will control CV, get another copy of this, hold Command and Shift, drag it around to the side. Grab both of these now, group them together, and turn them on a 45-degree angle. Now we can grab both of these shapes together and click Union. You'll see that they turn into a nice heart shape. And I'm going to turn back on pixel fitting, because now I'm getting back to the UI side of things. And I'm not sure what size that is. They've done a bit more touch up to their icon. I'm just showing you on the fly. White, and we'll leave it as 100. Yep. Okay, that's fine. Okay, play button on the right hand side is a circle. 16 from the right with a white border. Fill off, I think we're looking at 1 pixel. Yep, 1 pixel looks good. And then we'll grab a, oh, there's an actual triangle sign here. I should use that more often. I usually make a 3-point star, and that does the job. And this will probably be a little bit rounded as well. So I'm going to double click to get into the anchor points, select all three and turn the radius up to 1. Finish editing. I'll make it just a little bit more rounded, which just makes it more accessible, approachable. You don't want things to be too sharp. And we'll get to the bottom of this now, which that will be about 13. And what I do is I grab the entire length and divide it by 3/3, and it gives me 1/3. And now I can just drag this 3 times across and I have perfectly 3 spaced menu options. And that's home. That's your library. These look like they're 50 except for the one that is perfectly selected. And they all look a little bit smaller in size as well. So I'm just going to drop them down to 11. These all shapes are all easy enough to create as well. We make one square, grab another square, turn it on a 45 degree. Make it as wide as the home itself. There's an easier way. Double click into this, into the shape, and put a point in the middle. And then just drag it up. Don't know why I didn't think of that. And then we have around here a few more, so we can put a few more anchor points inside here and turn that into a house. Now it looks like it's not as tall as this. I'm grabbing all 3 and sliding it down. And then we will grab the shape and put it just as borders, 50% white. And then we'll round the edges just by 1, it should be. One should be okay. Yeah, they look like they're not rounded at all actually. So we'll just drop that back down to 0. The search is a circle and a line, nothing too outrageous there. So hold down Shift when we make our shapes just to keep the proportion, and we'll just get a line. Holding down Shift puts it on a nice 45-degree angle, which is great. And we'll make them clicking union, we'll turn them into one shape here. So we'll give it no fill and we'll give it a white border. Now see at the end here, it's flat cut off, and we don't want that. We want it to be rounded. You can change the ends to rounded and the joins to rounded, and you'll see that makes it a nice round shape at the end. So that looks like it's 1 pixel sitting in the center, probably directly in the center of the app, which is good. Where it should be, at least everything perfectly aligned. Everything else I've built makes it perfectly aligned, which is good. And then we have your library, which is just 3 lines, 1, 2, 3. All with the shape of white. Now they look like they're a little bit thicker. So they're not rounded, a little bit thicker. Just select them individually. Oh, sorry, what am I doing with? I'm going to select them individually with 3. 1 was leaning in and 2 are standing straight. Except the other way. So we'll grab all 3. We'll group them, right click, transform, flip horizontal to switch them the other side. And you'll be able to touch up that logo, touch up that your library bit to fit that size. So there you go. Look, that's the majority of it, but I want to show you the great stuff that happens up the top here. So if we grab the album, and this is probably how they've done it, the developer has done it, rather than hand picking the gradient for every single album, they will just blow this up. So Control C, Control V, we'll get it nice and large. We'll send it to the back so it's sitting behind all the text and everything. And then we'll just smash the Gaussian blur on it. So blurs, Gaussian blur, and we will just go to town. So that they would somehow manage to pick the coloring that comes from this. And once we have that and it's all splattered around and everything, we will put a layer mask around it so that it fades off into black into the rest of the application. So we'll put this invisible box in here. We'll select both the rectangle and the mask and we'll group them together. We'll put the rectangle underneath and we'll right click it and mask. And then we will change the mask mode, alpha mask. So what that's going to do now is if it's 100%, it's going to show 100%. If the fill is 0%, it's going to show 0. So we can change the gradient to 100% at the top. So select the top one, 100%, select the bottom one and go to 0%. And you can see now how, if you just adjust it a little bit, you can see how they've pulled the color from it. So they might not use the exact cover, they might use an image recognition to kind of grab the coloring from it. And it looks like even the brown is probably a little bit too much. So instead of making it 0 at the other end, we'll just make it, instead of making it 100, we'll just make it 60. Great. Well, there you go, guys. That's how to build the Spotify app. If you like this, make sure you like, you comment, tell your friends. And I'm running out of ideas on really cool apps to build. So if you have an idea, please post it to me and I'll build it for you. Okay, cool. I'll see you guys around.